a couple dollars, they gon' always try to plot. They gon' overdose on liquor, we got 700 shots. Hey, y'all need to stop telling them, let the
What's up YouTube, Danny James back here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to do this really cool transition one of my subscribers sent. I'll show you in a sec, but before we jump into that, make sure to give this video a like so that other people like you can get to watch this content. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Before you jump into YouTube, you can also check out my website dannyjames.co. I have some really cool assets that you can use to spice up your editing. Back into YouTube, I'll show you the video by T Grizzly. Sweet Tsunami highlighted the 3-second mark. So it's about right here. Yeah, I think it's these transitions which you have something circular coming in. There's another cool transition which the director really uses here. Yeah, the one you have some spinning circles coming in and then we transition to another video. So that's basically what I'll be showing you in this video. I'll just slow that down. Yeah, you can really see what's happening. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but I'll break it down for you on After Effects. So we are in After Effects. I have 3 clips right here which you shall use to transition. So basically we'll be transitioning from the first clip all the way into our third clip. Right at the end of your first clip, right at the last frame, just hit Ctrl D and then freeze that frame. And then I'll give it a different label mark so that we are all in sync. And then I'll push this one right here. I'll also push these other clips to the right so that I have some space. So the clip starts like that and then ends up into a freeze frame. Now for this freeze frame, we'll need to duplicate it so that we have 2 freeze frames. We'll split them. One will be the bottom half and the other will be a top half. We'll use masking to do that. So let me just rename these layers first. Bottom half freeze frame. And then this other one, top half freeze frame. Okay, I'll isolate my bottom half layer. Just click here to isolate that layer such that I'm not shown anything else. And then with that, I'll come right here so that I'm able to see the middle point. I'll hold Alt while clicking here so that I can get these guides to tell me the central part of the screen. Now I'll go quickly for the rectangle tool. And then from here, I'll cut the video, go back to my selection tool. So we have this mask on add, which is ideally what we want. So we want to isolate the other half for the top half. So I'll just hit M within this freeze frame, copy that mask, Ctrl V right there. And then I'll isolate that layer too. So I'll hit M. And then now instead of having it on add, we'll put it on subtract. That's our top half. Now if you've gotten these so far, we are almost there. So I can enable all my layers now. Now for the second part, we're going to animate this movement. Let's isolate the bottom half once again. Hit S for our scaling keyframes. Enable that keyframe. I'll go 10 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now don't change this value manually. Just click right here on the screen and drag it up. So we are sort of squeezing it upwards. So it should look like this. Okay. Now I'll do the same for the top half so that we are all in sync. Hit S. Now the top half will wrap after the bottom half has done it. So right at this second keyframe, that's where we start our scaling. We'll go 10 frames. And then we click right there and squeeze it down. You can just leave a tiny space there. Now I'll enable all the layers so that you can all see what's happening. So it's a simple animation like that. Now we need to sell this animation a little better. Whenever you're trying to fold, let's say a frame, we need to have some blurriness. It also needs to stretch quite a bit on the right hand side and the left hand side. So for the bottom half, I'll go right on our effects and preset and look for a Bezier warp, put it there. I'll also look for a radial blur, not the CC radial blur, but I think it can also work. And then I'll also add the radial blur. I have isolated the bottom half so that you can focus on it. Now add keyframes for the Bezier warp. just add all these keyframes. You don't need to add the keyframe for quality. So stretch the left hand side like that and stretch the right hand side using these marks. Okay, I'll go back here and enable full screen, hit U so that I can see those keyframes. I'll highlight on them, put them right after 10 frames, which is the same timing as our scaling keyframes. So they should be right here. And then at the beginning, you can reset that value so that it starts at 0. For the radial blur, we'll need to change these parameters, change it to a zoom, add a keyframe for amount, make that amount 20, 25, anywhere to 30. Again, let's enable full screen right here. We can see this keyframe here. I'll move it right above the other keyframes, right where they meet, and then it should start at 0. Don't reset the value because it will also reset the type of zoom. So just set it to 0. So that by the time it also goes about 2-3 frames in, 1, 2, 3, it's already doing a blur of 7.5. So you can see what that looks like. Now we're going to do the same for the other top half of this freeze frame. I'll isolate that layer, add these effects, add the Bezier warp, add the radial blur to it, and basically we're doing the same thing. So for the top half, it starts animating right after the second half has done the same. So I should follow the keyframes for the bottom half. So right here, that's where we start animating our top half. So I'll add a keyframe for the Bezier warp, stretch the selection left and right. Come back here to this keyframe, press U. I'll move those keyframes so that they are in line with the scaling keyframes, which is 10 frames. And then initially, where we are at, start it at 0. Again, let's add the keyframes for the radial blur. So I'll enable that effect, change the type to a zoom, add a keyframe for amount, set it at 25. Come back here, enable full screen so that you can see that keyframe. Hit U again if you can't see it. Now I can see right here. I'll move the keyframe to 10 frames once again, and then initially set it to 0. Everything looks lined up. Now after you've done all this, just highlight on your keyframes, hit F9 so that you can put them on easy ease. Again, I'll do the same for the bottom half freeze frame, put them on easy ease. Okay, and I'll collapse these two. Let's preview this portion first. So we start from these. Let me remove the guides. We start from our original clip, our freeze frames, like that. If you don't need this much space, it goes back to the scaling keyframes which you added here. Maybe it's the keyframes for the bottom half. Let me just hit S. Make sure I'm at that keyframe. I'll zoom in. I'll isolate that layer, use this area, and you can see it's the bottom half which had those issues. So make sure to use this feature for isolating the layers so that you can track these layers better and you don't get distracted. Now the other thing that's remaining is adding some spinning freeze frames coming up and down. Now you can just get a screenshot, or you can pick a freeze frame from your third clip or any other clip. It doesn't necessarily need to be a specific. So I'll take a freeze frame right here. So I'll hit Ctrl D from that clip and then go to time freeze frame. And then I'll bring it right here where we start these other layers. I'll change the color for this freeze frame, put it on red. I'll trim it so that it's not really long. Okay, now for these ones, let me just name them spinning cup, spinning circle. Okay, we'll need 2 spinning circles, just like in the example that I just saw from the video. So I'll Ctrl D to duplicate that, rename the first one first spinning circle, and then the second one second spinning circle. Now for the first spinning circle, I'll isolate that layer, and then I'll get our elliptical tool and create a perfect circle around the middle. I'll hold Shift to maintain the aspect ratio, like that. Now I can come back to my selection tool and I can move it so that it's perfectly in the middle. Now with that done, I'll copy the same mask to our second spinning circle. Control C, Control V, and I can see there it also has a mask. I'll also enable that layer. So we are seeing these two layers. Now one more thing, we need to add keyframes for rotation for these ones so that they are ever rotating throughout this sequence. So I'll also let them stretch out for a few more seconds. Click on both of them while holding Shift, hit R to add keyframes for rotation, and then I'll go about after 1 second. Let's have them rotate twice and watch that animation. Okay, so that's quite okay, but I'll bring them a bit closer. So just, yeah, so that's a good speed. Again, it's not rotating perfectly because the anchor point is not perfectly centered. I'll click on my clip, go to layer, transform, center anchor point in layer content. I'll do the same for the second spinning circle. Go to layer, transform, center anchor point in layer content. Now we have some good speed on this spinning. We'll copy these keyframes, Control C, Control V. Okay, I can't highlight keyframes for different objects, so Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. Now we have it there. I'll again copy this other middle one so that this rotation continues. Control V, Control C, Control V. So let's watch the spinning. So it goes clockwise, anti-clockwise. You can have the movement repeat and so on. So just find a balance and find something that works and looks natural to your eye. Now I'll start by isolating the first spinning circle. Okay, I won't isolate it actually. I'll make sure I can see my other layers. So right here in the beginning for this spinning circle, hit P so that you can have keyframes for position. Enable that keyframe, and then I'll drop it down, down, down. As this bottom frame goes up, let me just shut down the second spinning circle. As this bottom freeze frame goes up, this one should also go up to there. So let's see that. Okay, so it goes up, and then let's get it back down. You can copy this initial keyframe so that it goes to the same position that it came. Yeah. Okay. Now for this first spinning circle, I need us to complete one thing first. As soon as it goes up and then it goes down again, let's take it up once more, but let's go past this halfway mark. So we shall go up, up. Okay, just make sure it looks fluid and reasonable, and then once it goes up again, let it come back down to the very middle point of this frame. So I guess that's the middle point of this frame. So it should look like this, like that. Now we'll work on the spacing on the keyframes afterwards, but let's put them on easy ease so that there is a fluidity in the movement. You'll also understand why I'm animating it to go up eventually and then down to the middle. So let's first add keyframes for the second spinning circle. I'll enable that layer. Hit P. The second spinning circle should begin animating when the top half freeze frame begins. So I'll take it up like that, and then as the top half of the freeze frame goes down, we bring it down with it. So I'll bring it down so that it comes there, and then I'll take it up and again. So I'll copy the initial keyframe and have it go up. Highlight on these keyframes, put them on easy ease. So it's a really fast transition. You can watch the number of frames I'm putting between. I think I'm going with 10 frames just as a constant so that you don't also get confused with the numbers. The second spinning circle comes into the middle goes up and disappears forever, which is ideally what we want. Once you've done all those changes with the first spinning circle and the second spinning circle, we need to play it back and see if the movement looks fluid enough and natural. So I'll play it. Okay, everything looks good, but for the first spinning circle, the one which goes all the way up and back to the center, from here to up and then here doesn't look so fluid. So I'll make sure there is some space between these two keyframes because it goes all the way up. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So I'll put nearly 20 frames just to make it make sense. So let me just play it. Okay, and then I'll also add some space as soon as it goes all the way up before coming to the middle. Let me just zoom in quite a bit. Let me remove these guides. Yeah, so that looks perfectly normal and fluid. So that's what you want to look for whenever you have these spinning circles going up and down. Okay, once that's done, it's now time to bring our second clip and complete this transition. For the next clip, we need to create an elliptical mask from it, and it also needs to be perfectly positioned into the middle. For us to get the same mask, it's better if we copy the mask from the spinning circles. So I'll hit M on the first spinning circle or the second one, copy that mask, collapse that, bring it onto our second clip, Ctrl V, and now if I hit M, I can see that mask. Now what I need to do with this mask, we need to make it a subtraction mask. So you can put it on subtract, or you can have it stay on add and invert that selection. Now this should be very easy. Hit S so that you can get those keyframes. I'll squeeze that keyframe to my right just a bit, and then I'll move towards on my left side, and then I'll scale it up. And then I'll bring this keyframe here. Now if I scrub through, it comes back like this. Now let's enable all the layers in our composition and see what it looks like. Okay, so we can see it's not perfectly in the middle. We need to go to our spinning circle which comes to the central part, hit P. Let's go on our last keyframe, and then let's bring this here until it's right here. So let's position this other circle such that it fits perfectly into our circle. Like that. Now if I play it back, yes. Now to get rid of this stretched lining that stays behind, it's because of the freeze frame. So once you are done with it, so I guess once we are about here, we don't need these freeze frames. You can just trim them. So it should go like this. Like that. So just play around and squeeze your clip until it totally adds up. But you can see for our scaling keyframes, let's also put them on easy ease. Once everything settles into the middle, as soon as this spinning circle comes right in the middle, we can cut the excess. So at the end of its position keyframes, you can just cut the excess. So it should just look like this, and then it's a blank space. Okay, now most of the issues that you can come by in After Effects can be solved by pre-composing. So let me just show you a good example of this. I'll pre-compose all my layers from the freeze frames to the performance. I'll remove the third clip. Sorry, let me just, okay. So I've highlighted on all the clips right here, except the clip that you're transitioning into, the third clip, and right click, and then I'll hit pre-compose. I'll name this freeze frame plus spinning circle. Okay, we can move all attributes into the new composition. Before we continue animating, I'll just come into our pre-comp. Now I'll enable motion blur for all these clips right within this pre-comp so that they have that natural blurriness that occurs whenever items are moving towards or away from the screen. So I'll enable motion blur for all of them. Make sure to toggle between switches and modes so that you can see this one here. Now also to adjust the amount of blurriness, you can just adjust the shutter angle by going to our composition settings, advanced. You can change it from 90 or any bit value. Just put it anywhere between 180 degrees going up will give you a more blurriness like that. Now let's finish off this transition. On our pre-comp, we need to enable 3D for this freeze frame plus spinning circle pre-comp. As long as you have a 3D layer, we need a camera so that you can navigate through it. I'll right click, create a new camera. Let's name this one transition camera. You can leave the settings as they are. Now let's drop down this menu for transform, add a keyframe for everything from right here. And then let's go a few frames later. And then using our camera controls, I'm using C to toggle between them. And then now I'll zoom in. Like that. For these keyframes, put them on easy ease. So that looks okay. Now I'll drop down this menu and then I'll bring on my last clip, which is my third clip. Here it is. As we are moving in right here, as long as you're right here, I can place my next clip right here. So let me just squeeze it. So now the transition should look like this. Yeah, and it really adds up and it makes total sense. Now remember, you can change the clip which you want to transition into, like the last clip right here. I'll just bring in another clip so that you can see it for yourself. I have this clip by Mula Juice. I'll bring it right here and I'll play it. Yeah, so it's a really fast transition, but as long as you're able to execute it well, it should look really good on any video. So it's a really fast transition, and if you're able to do it well, it should really come out as you want it. So remember to not have this video appear right in front, just wait for this spinning ball to come right beneath, right there. So I'll squeeze these clips right here. So now the transition should look really good. Yeah, so that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did prepping it for you. In case you got stuck anywhere, just leave it on the comment box. I'm happy to help and also share with you this project file so that you can copy my workflow. My name is Danny James. See you in the next video. Cheers.